Is this a video game or a collectible? Let's get into it. What is this? Well, if we took a look at the packaging, it's Axiom Verge 2, made by the one-person team of Thomas Happ. I played the first one, which was a great game, so I've been meaning to play the second one forever. And here it is. This particular copy was made by Limited Run Games. Limited Run Games is a company that does small runs of video games with open pre-orders. What that means is if there's an indie game that may or may not have the financial means to make a widely released physical version of their game, they may work with Limited Run. An additional group of games they make is when a larger company like an Activision or a Microsoft or a Sega may want to release a game but think a digital-only version is the way to go. When Limited Run sees a demand for that physical release, it will sometimes work with those larger companies to make a physical version of that game. If there's an older game in the retro category, Limited Run will track down the rights owners of the original IP and work to modernize the game using their Carbon engine. That will allow for the games to be released physically for modern consoles. In addition to all of that, Limited Run makes collector's editions of most of these games as well. I have about 41 Switch games that are Limited Run games, which makes a little under 10% of my collection. Of those Limited Run games, I've opened 0% of them. What usually happens is I'll get really excited for a Limited Run game, I'll pre-order the game, and then in between me pre-ordering the game and the game coming physically to my door, I'll buy a digital copy when the game goes on sale. And at that point, it doesn't actually make sense for me to open the physical copy of the game. I still haven't answered the question of whether or not this is a game or a collectible. I think to better understand that, I'm going to have to fly to Limited Run's retail location to find out more about what they do and figure out where that fits into this equation.
Yeah, so the brand was founded by Josh Fairhurst, and he came from a development background. So he worked in indie dev, and there became a point where he didn't have a physical of his game. It was digital only, and he thought his company was going to fold. He just had this feeling that if his game were ever to be delisted or the store went down or anything like that, they would have nothing to show for all those years of hard work that they put into it. So he basically put the remainder of his money into making a small run of his first game, which is Breach and Clear, and it's sold out within under 2 hours. And so that kind of was like an indication that there's a hunger for this and people want physical games.
Yeah, that was on the Vita, right?
Yeah.
That's one of those, that's the
rare
ones.
Yeah, it's like the holy grail. It's hard, it's hard to get, yeah.
For sure. So you guys have been doing releases for a while now. We see quite a few here. Are there any that are like notable for you?
I loved the Oddworld games. Jack and Daxter games were amazing. And then we have an upcoming one that we're doing with our Carbon engine, which is Tomba.
Oh, yeah.
And Gex Trilogy, yeah. So I'm super excited about those.
I'm like super glad you guys are coming up with it because I feel like it'll probably end up being like the best way to play it. That was one of the games that I used to play that on like repeat just from the demo disc. And then like, then I like would eventually get it later. But that game's like skyrocketed in price. Sometimes it's like, okay, let's spin up this PS1. Great. I have 3 broken, PS1s and like a game that I'm not even sure works super good. That's, oh cool, I can just play it on the Switch.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have the same like situations too, because we all love retro games, obviously. Like, in me, because I love that PlayStation 1 era, one of the best ways to play PlayStation 1 games is on a PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've turned mine on. It sounds like a Quinjet, and you have to like reflow it and fix it. So yeah.
It's like a nightmare situation for the backwards compatible one. Like at least the one that's 1, 2, and 3 backwards compatible one. Reflowing it, you're using the heat gun on it, and then so it's like, yeah, put a heat gun directly against your graphics processor, and I'm just like losing. I'm like, this doesn't seem right, but then it works for another.
Yeah.
And so this is a retail space. You guys operate mainly online, but what has opening this retail space really done for you in terms of being able to engage with customers and fans?
The retail store was really Josh's, the founder's, like passion project during the pandemic. He was really longing for a store like this, and kind of like those old days, where people used to be excited to go to the store, like grand opening midnight releases and stuff. And he put a lot of attention to detail. Like, there's every single thing in this store he has thought out down to like what he wanted it to smell like, which is like popcorn, because that's what it smelled like in Blockbusters.
Everything down to like the way it's displayed. It's so, because typical game store, it's like, let's see how many pieces we can fit in as possible. And like, that's how most collections end up becoming, because how much space do I have to make into a library? How much space do I have into like displaying? And it's very Blockbuster-esque. It's like, look at that.
Yeah.
Super cool. What are some of the releases that have been made possible due to the development of the Carbon engine? And like, where do you guys see yourself like taking that project in the future?
We've done quite a few games on Carbon engine. So the first one was Shantae for Game Boy. And we did a couple with Way Forward, and we have some more in the pipe. So we have Clock Tower upcoming.
Dope.
And then we did River City Girl Zero, which actually never came out in the West. So that was cool because we got to bring it to the West for the first time, localize it, added all these new animations with Way Forward. So that was awesome.
Collaboration. Clearly, you guys have done some. There's games that you've came out with, like Scott Pilgrim, that was just a holy grail for such a long time, and almost a meme thing, because everybody's like, oh, when are you going to make Scott Pilgrim? What are some of your like dream collaborations maybe for the future?
Yeah, it's hard because we've done so many of them already that I really wanted to do. I would love to see a Conker's Bad Fur Day.
So I 100% agree. And I want like a definitive collection.
Yeah.
I want like Conker's Bad Fur Day N64. I want the weird Xbox one.
Yeah, but I know they had a Game Boy game too. Well,
Pocket Tail.
yeah, it was weird though. It wasn't quite like what Conker's is like
Today.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But
Where do you guys see yourself in the larger picture of video game preservation? And, as the world turns, and if we live in a world where it is digital only, what will Limited Run do?
Video Game History Foundation has a stat, which I'm sure you know about, where it's something like 87% of video games are endangered of just being lost.
Yeah.
So I think where the real preservation aspect comes in is the Carbon Engine, because we're taking these games that sometimes never came out in the West, extremely hard to play, extremely expensive to play if you want to buy it. And like if you want complete in box, like forget about that. You have to be made of money. So, and of course, anything we make in our Carbon Engine, we're going to make a physical copy of, because, it is limited quantities. But in most cases, if these games didn't get a physical from us, they just wouldn't have a physical at all. In the future, I think that platform holders, are obviously trying to kind of wean people off physical media, but obviously we still have, consoles that have physical media. I think there's always a want for physical media. Even if the majority of people do buy digital, it's super important. And if we lose that, we lose something super, super special. So I think it'll be longer than people anticipate to when it completely goes away. We're always going to be all in on physical, like no matter what. Even if the consoles have no drives, like we're still going to make collector's editions. We'll do everything we can. We'll put it on USB sticks if we have to, because we're very committed to that. And people deserve to play, right? And, we like to think even bad games deserve to be preserved and played.
To that point, I do love when you guys come out with, games like Plumbers Don't Wear Ties that there might not, I didn't even know who was asking for that, but it's like really cool that it didn't just get like here's the release. It got a red carpet documentary style release, and it's just neat that you did something for that game. That's an entire era that I don't think anybody's revisiting in a big way anytime soon. It's neat that you have that capsule and you're just making stuff. What has been some of your most successful non-gaming releases?
That's hard to pinpoint because we do a lot of merch. We do a lot of Skates X, shirts, keychains, cards, coins. So, we could do almost anything you'd think of, and I couldn't possibly predict what like the mad creative scientists at Limited Run will come up with. I think one of the funnier things we did recently is we had an indie game called Arzette the Jewel Fairmore, which is based off of the Zelda CDI games.
Yeah.
And we released basically a CDI controller.
Yeah, that was sick.
Works on PC and Switch, so that was a pretty funny one. But yeah, there's so many things we could do. I couldn't predict what the next thing is, but we do lots of cool merch.
You guys publish using a myriad of platforms that have a lot of different variations. What have been some of the challenges associated with that? And, what's like a format you'd love to, publish on that maybe we haven't seen yet?
The further back you get, depending on what happened with whatever the company was that put it out originally, they either don't have the source code or they don't have anything at all, and they just like own the IP or like own the game. So there's been times with retro re-releases where we've had to pay collectors to give us scans of things because like no one else had it. It's crazy. And then down to the like manufacturing, like trying to manufacture old boards like NES boards. It's hard to find good quality vendors, and the retro stuff takes longer. So there's tons of challenges with it, but I've never seen people so persistent as production team at Limited Run. They will go through everything that they need to make stuff happen. Even when we did the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles release.
Oh yeah, you did you did a million different things.
So they're so committed to like kind of preserving that like nostalgia effect. Is in the original release, they gave Pizza Hut coupons. And so Josh tracked down the right person at Pizza Hut for months and months and actually got them to let us put Pizza Hut coupon in the new release of the game, which is crazy. But yeah, there's lots of challenges to it.
Just for every single game that exists, there's like 10 versions of it that are mildly different, but different enough so it's like, what's going on there?
I mean, there's so many I'm not even aware of. Like when we did the Jurassic Park Classic Games Collection and we try to include all the games that we can. Yeah, there's like always these varied editions of the game. And I'm like, I didn't even know that existed. And there it is.
You know, as you continue to make more things, like your core business is games and like extensions of games. But like, where do you see yourself or where do you see Limited Run games expanding in the future?
We're huge fans of like retro media. I don't want to say what could be next because I don't want to spoil it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, maybe some retro media. Yeah.
I like that.
That hasn't been done in a very long time.
First of all, it was really nice for Alena to give me that in-depth interview, and I want to give a shout out to John, who opened up the store for us on this day that the store isn't usually open. For those folks at home that can't make it to Raleigh, I'm going to give you a little store tour and let you know what I think about it. I'm stoked to be here because there are some Limited Run releases that I have not picked up, but I meant to in the past, that I will be picking up today. Having an original soundtrack for a store is super fun to me and reminds me of Book Off, so you know I'm picking this up. I typically pick up the standard release from Limited Run, but I'm super excited to see all these collector's editions in person. I do like how the collector's editions usually follow the original box art of whatever console the games came on, but I do like having all of my boxes be a standard size on my shelf. Chex Quest is easily the best serial-based first-person shooter. When this game originally came out, I picked up 2 collector's editions. I'm not sure why I did that. The box art on these Castlevania collections is just so dope. They have a scratch and dent and clearance section, and I'm the type of person that's okay with that, so I ended up picking up some games from here as well. As much as I think I'm aware of all the Limited Run releases, it's really interesting to me the amount of games here that I had just never heard of, and it was super just cool to browse all of them. I love everything about Switch games. I love the size of the box, I love the way the art looks, I love the way they fit on a shelf, so I ended up picking up a ton of Switch games. While you do often find Limited Run games in the wild, it's really neat to go into a video game store and nearly every single game here is an exclusive to basically just this store. Growing up, I used to watch Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure with my sister like all the time. Watched the movie a lot, never played the game. The Angry Video Game Nerd is probably one of my favorite original YouTubers, and I just, am glad I could pick this up here. In addition to the Limited Run games, they just have a whole section of just normal games that you can buy here, which is great. They have an official store policy of never charging above MSRP for Limited Run games that come back into their store. On the flip side of things, the prices are generally pretty good across the board here. Their clientele is mostly mega collectors, so a lot of the games here that they've got in stock are probably traded in by people that have really good taste. I just love seeing Famicom Disk System games anywhere. I just realized I might have been fibbing when I said I've never opened a Limited Run game, because I've definitely bought this and opened this and played this with my kid. I'm missing one of the Sam & Max games, so I picked this up for my slipcover, and I have all these games, but I don't have the slipcover, so I picked this up. They were preparing for a scratch and dent sale, so they hooked the homie up with this game. I've been looking for that one for ages. This is a joke price, but I was obsessed with this movie when it was coming out. I watched every single trailer, but was kind of disappointed when I saw it in theaters. I feel like Gargoyles was an extremely serious show in the Disney lineup, but it was such a good show. I'm way too much of a wimp to play this game, but this special edition looks so cool. This is one of my favorite games of all time. I don't know why I don't own this, picking it up. I also loved Mighty Gunvolt Burst when it came out, so I'm totally picking this one up too. This is one of the most unique video game stores I've ever been to, because all of the games are exclusive to this location. It's a great place to go if you need a second chance of picking up something that you missed out on. I ended up picking up a ton of games here, but I didn't really get that much closer to answering the question whether these are games or collectibles. At the end of the day, when I'm out there game hunting and I see a Limited Run game on a shelf, 90% of the time, nobody's opened it. And that being said, I'm going to give you a cop-out answer. Why not both? Why can't these be video games for some people, collectibles for others, something in between for like me personally? I love video games, I love the development developers that make these video games, and whenever there's a path by which I can play these games and, support those developers monetarily, I try and do that. It's not lost on me that we're barreling towards a future that may or may not have physical versions of games. I'm just glad a company like Limited Run Games is around to just slow that path down ever so slightly. And if I'm gonna be real with you, this is kind of like my low-key version of like doomsday prepping, so that like one day, if all the servers in the world shut down and there's no way that I can play these games, I will have a physical copy in my basement that I can play, which is just, totally and completely bonkers. Well, anyways, what do you think about Limited Run Games? Do you think these games are video games? You think they're collectibles? You think they're just a huge waste of money if I'm buying them digitally already? Let me know.